Okay, hello and welcome to the first installment of the Philippines in Focus seminar series. This one is titled Exploring the Filipino Community in Melbourne and Australia. And this seminar series is an initiative of Trobe Asia in its objective to engage the public in meaningful discussion and to deepen our understanding and knowledge of the Asian region. We would like to introduce first ourselves as your co-host for this session. I am Francis Soliano, a higher degree researcher in the Department of Social Inquiry in La Trobe University, Melbourne.
And I am Ray Fortes, a La Trobe University alumni, now working at the university. And one of my roles is serving as a liaison officer and copywriter for the team developing the Philippines-Australia Forum at La Trobe.
Before we begin this event, we would like to acknowledge the elders of the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land upon which La Trobe University sits. I would also like to pay respect to all the people, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are watching this session.
And tonight also marks the official launch of the Philippines Australia Forum at La Trobe University. And this forum is supported by the Deed of Gift provided by the Philippine government and the Philippine Consulate-General in Melbourne to advance Philippine studies at La Trobe and increase awareness of Philippine culture to the Australian community. So now let's explore the Filipino community in Melbourne and Australia tonight with our special guests.
We are delighted to introduce our panel. The first is May Red Zafra, who is an English and Filipino language teacher. She is a proud member of La Trobe University community as an alumna with a degree in Master of TESOL. May is an active community volunteer and she has recently been inducted to the Victorian Multicultural Honor Roll 2022. It is nice to have you in this session, May.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone.
And our second guest is Raine Cabral Laysico, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, who is a Philippine Times columnist and also works as a campaign manager. She completed her Bachelor of International Business at RMIT in Melbourne and finished her degree of International Studies at Miriam College in the Philippines. Raine has spent close to 2 decades serving the Filipino Australian community and is a lovely mother to her 5-year-old and 7-month-old baby. And Raine is a firm believer in having an attitude of gratitude in any situation of life. So, welcome this evening, Raine.
Thank you so much for having me, Ray and Francis, and obviously the La Trobe student community. So, good evening.
We also have with us Melvin Mata, who is a mechanical engineer by profession. He was elected as a Sangguniang Kabataang chairman in Bicol, and that started his involvement in youth and sports leadership. He is also a FIBA referee, an Australian Open umpire, a media broadcast journalist, and one of the directors of Gawad Kalinga Australia, among others. He was also inducted to the Victorian Multicultural Honor Roll in 2022 and recognized by the Governor of Victoria for his sports and event volunteerism. Welcome to the program, Melvin.
Thank you for having me, guys. Hope you have enjoyed conversation. Hope you enjoy conversation later on. So thank you for having us. La Trobe University Australia. Thank you very much.
So we will start by engaging the guests in a conversation about their experiences as part of the Filipino community in Australia. And after that, there will be an open forum for the audience to ask their questions and, in fact, also even share their experiences.
Mm-hmm. And now, to start our conversation with our guests, I would like to pose an opening question to all of our panelists, May, Raine, and Melvin. Given your involvement with in the Filipino community and seeing the Filipino community grow. What are some of the similarities and differences between Australian and Filipino culture that you've come to experience, especially when it comes to providing support to the community or nurturing interpersonal relationships?
Okay, so I thought about this question a lot, to be honest.
Mm,
And I have decided on discussing three things about this. So I guess the similarities, first one would be diversity, cultural and linguistic diversity, because we all know that Australia is a very multicultural community. And despite the Philippines being a country on its own, we all know that we are also very culturally and linguistically diverse. So I can see that, similarity and that celebration of multiculturalism. And I see that as a really, really good way to
mm,
engage in our community. Another thing on the lighter side of things is the food culture. Um,
mm,
if you are new to Melbourne, you'll be surprised. Oh my God, Melbourne is a melting pot of all different cuisines and dishes from all around the world. And despite the fact that again, Philippines is just one country, we know that we have diverse, and we are people of very strong food culture.
mm,
And another thing that I see and I can relate to is the solidarity and unity, especially in times of calamities, in times of troubles and hardships. And we've seen that a lot in the past, during the bushfire, during pandemic, and until now where some of our friends and families are experiencing flooding in different areas of Victoria. So those are some of the similarities that I can point out. With respect to differences, I really look into how our Australian community take care of our environment
mm,
and our nature. And I hope that we can replicate this kind of values to our country as well, because we have beautiful natural resources as well that we should take care of. Another thing that's probably something that we can replicate is what Australians say, a fair go. There's still a big disparity between the rich and the poor in our country. But in Australia, they are very proud to say that, look, you have a fair go. No, you work hard, you have that equal opportunity as everyone else. And on the lighter side again, I guess the love for sports. If you are new to Melbourne, you see like the enthusiasm of people about sports, and people go out, they enjoy sports, different kinds of events, as a community, and it brings us together as a community. In the Philippines, we love sports too, but only basketball at this stage. So hopefully we can also celebrate different kinds of sports back home. So those are the things that I would say similarities and differences.
And yes, I can definitely agree. Even my first time coming into Melbourne, I was surprised by the amount of different options in
Yeah.
terms of food culture. And I was like, wow, this is a Filipino's dream being having so many options with food. And I like how you
Mm.
touched upon solidarity, because that is one thing I also noticed, how, both Australians and Filipinos have that kind of passion to help each other,
Mm. Yeah.
and help each other, progress and support, especially when you're new here in Australia.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, thank you for those comments, May. Melvin and Raine, do you have anything to add?
I think, right, just to, I guess, further expand on May's second topic there regarding just helping each other out. We actually did, I guess, a similarity sort of study regarding bayanihan and the Australian concept of mateship, which is sort of
Mm,
helping each other out. So it's very much a a strong point insofar as, and one of the key topics actually during the celebration of the Filipino and Australian Friendship Day that we had just this year. So to further expand on that, that sort of willingness to help one another is what is common insofar as two cultures are concerned. The differences, I would think, though, is there's just a certain element within the Filipino culture that we're quite, our definition of family is quite broad in the sense of the word. So, you know, the grandparents and uncles and aunties, you know, generations on generations are considered what we call still a core family to a certain extent. Whereas with the Australians, it's really just your traditional mum, dad, or and child in that family. So I think with Kaizen and explaining that to him, because to the audience, I have a 5-year-old, as Raine mentioned earlier. So it's really, I guess, broadening that concept and having him to understand both his Filipino as well as his Australian side as well. So I think that's been very helpful as part of, I guess, building a strong cultural foundation for our young ones here and having that sense of identity there. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, I agree. Like even just looking at when it comes to family reunions on the Filipino side, you can witness the huge numbers that come into these gatherings, and everyone just enjoying each other's presence. And you make a good point, Rain, and that's a very important way to teach the younger generation and your children in terms of being immersed in both cultures and learning the background of both cultures. So yes. How about you, Melvin? What have you noticed in the differences or similarities between the two cultures?
I would just like to add on because I think Rain and May already have identified those similarities and differences. But I think on sports, especially on sports, we're all passionate. We're both passionate on sports, especially on our on our sports, basketball, and on the Aussie sides are cricket and the footy. And we're both passionate. Both cultures are passionate. As we have a bad example last time, I think 2 years ago when the Aussies visited in the Philippines, but we had a very tight and physical ball game of basketball in the Philippines, and it went off really a riot. And because of it, we call it passionate because we really don't want to. Our feelings are connected to the physical game, the physical sport, and that's the same with with the Aussies as well. But evidently, in our other fields, I think the Aussies are not. We are not evolving into Aussies. We are evolving into multicultural community, multicultural community. And I think it's not all about just for the Filipinos are adjusting or adapting to Aussie culture, but we're adapting to the multicultural culture as well. And the good thing with that is the Aussies are also adapting into multicultural level as well, as you have seen. We have various have so many cultures here in Australia that should have been dividing us, but in the good thought, because of the government's, I think it's because of the government leadership that binding us all together, whether it's on a labor or liberal. I think they have the same programs and what you call of this principle on multicultural commitment. Because if the government isn't committed to become a multicultural society, then God help us. I think we're all going to to have riots in especially with religion. You know what I mean. So I think it starts with the political conviction of the government as well, that we don't really need separation, but we need unity.
Mm.
And I think the Filipinos need to adapt more on the Australian attitude and behavior, especially on minding your own business. You know what I mean? We call it marites in the Filipino side, but that's one thing that we need to really get rid of. And the second thing is, I think, just have a fair go. According to May, even in the Philippines, you cannot see a 60-year-old still. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Working in in Macas or in an industrial company because of discrimination. And as if Filipinos are watching this here in Australia, our resumes, our CVs are not that complete like the ones that we have in the Philippines. Yeah, we don't need to really specify our age, our gender, our culture, and our face and our ages. So it's really we have an equal opportunity system here in Australia. I think that's the only thing that I can add on at the moment.
Thank you for that insight, Melvin. And if I may, I'll ask a follow-up question because I'm really awed at how jack of all trades person you are, and it seems that you really take seriously your interests. And so, how does Melbourne or Australia help in keeping alive, that kind of attitude of just going for those paths? Yes, Melvin, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's for me. Yeah. So I think it's um, being a multitask person. I think it depends on who and how the person has been trained or has been into adversities, because the more that the person is exposed in adversities, the more stronger that you are. You know what I mean? You cannot baby a person, and then when it comes to sufferings, you could just going to baby him at all. You cannot get any. You can't get any result from there. I think it depends on the person and the personality. And as I've said, we are all migrants here. We have unique we have unique cases coming here. Each and every family, each and every person has unique story to tell. You know what I mean? We don't have May's story is different from Raine and from any other else. There's some Filipinos that are well off that can come to Melbourne, come to Australia, whatever or however they wanted it. But there are Filipinos as well. Majority of us, 90%, 95% are poor people that you know saved money from the Philippines, sold their property, sold their Carabao, sold their crops, their poultries, just for the kids to come down to Australia to just start up as a student. But we know that it's not the main purpose of being a student. It's migrating. So I think it depends on what case and how determined is a person, and why, and also how they wanted to come here. Depends on their determination, and it depends on their weapons as well. We are at war here. You're coming here prepared. You need to be prepared mentally, psychologically, physically, and most of all religiously, because if not, you're just going to fail. I think you need to prepare, adapt, adapt in an early stage, and also get along and enjoy life. So I think that's one thing that I can um that's one approach that I can give to the Filipino migrants at the moment.
And thank you, yes, thank you for sharing that, Melvin. And it is true that everyone coming to Melbourne from the Philippines have their own unique stories, and go through different challenges and hoops just to start kind of from ground zero in a new country. If Raine's still there, I wanted to pose a question to you, given that you've been sharing a lot of stories from the Filipino-Australian community here in Melbourne. So I wanted to ask you, having experienced Melbourne for nearly 2 decades, and first arriving as an exchange student in 2005, and then later completing your bachelor's of international business degree in 2009. How has your interaction with the Filipino-Australian community helped inspire the stories you choose to share through your writing in the Philippine Times?
Right. So I think just to touch on Melvin's earlier point, the fact that we're all migrants here says that we have our own unique stories to tell. So the column, and thank you, that was quite an in-depth research, right?
Thank you.
My background. So I've always, and to Melvin's earlier point, there has been a lot of personal struggles that I've experienced in my life. My dad actually passed away 20 days after I arrived in Melbourne as a student, and I'm the eldest of 7 kids. So there has been a lot that I had to sort of overcome to ensure that obviously my family, so my siblings, have a bright future as well. But I believe in always paying it forward and having a positive attitude. So now that 17 years on, I've got my siblings here, and I've got a family of my own. I always now put it in my mind, any sort of writing that I do, I always say, how can this inspire the younger generation, or how can this be something that potentially my son would read down the track and say, you know what, everyone has their own story to tell, and it's that inspiration behind that can give people a bit more hope, regardless of what challenges they face. And in my time with the Filipino community, and it's a very vibrant community, we meet different people from all walks of life. And primarily, I don't know if the audience is aware, there has been such a big push of the Filipino food movement in Melbourne. The pandemic itself has really distilled everyone's aspirations and dreams of where they want to end up, or how they want to direct their own lives. So in a sense, and obviously it was quite a trying and challenging time for us all with the multiple lockdowns. However, it's also served as a bit of a refining period for all of us. And when we do choose, and people actually put their hand up and say, I'm willing to share my story, and it is because of that now people have come to a realization that life's too short not to worry about failure. Failure is part of learning. And that's the one thing I also want to add. There is such a strong, positive, and resilient core to the Filipino people. It is not looking back and sort of whitewashing things or seeing things through rose-colored windows. No, we are a people who have gone through a lot and have if you were to look at it from, I guess, a medical perspective, we are people with a very high pain threshold, in the sense that if we have a vision of where we want our life to be, and that is common through all the people that I've interviewed so far, and even within the Filipino community, if we have a vision and a strong sense of self and faith of what we want to achieve, it doesn't matter what things are thrown at you, or it doesn't matter if people say no to you to your face, or people tell you it's not going to happen. There is such a strong sense of self within the Filipino culture, within the Filipino soul, that you get to say, that's all right. I can find another way. I will pick myself up and I will start again. I will pick myself up, and it doesn't matter if you say no to me. I will find that one person who will say yes. I will find a way to make it happen. And that's what's really inspiring me as well, to continue to share those stories. Because you know what? You only will lose if you think you're going to lose. Everything else in that Filipino mindset is like, I'm going to get this done. It's all about picking myself up and making sure, what do I need to do to make this happen? All right, yes, I'm tired. Yes, I haven't, I'm working 12 hours, but you know what? I have a dream, and I will hold on to that dream, and I will do everything in my power to make that work for me. And that's what's really inspiring with, all the micro business owners that Melvin features, that may feature. It's that sense of they work, their 9 to 5 jobs, and then they get those small orders in, and then from like 5 to midnight they work on those orders, be it like small businesses that cater to Filipino foods, be it making masks throughout the pandemic, opening up the small restaurants, sweets, desserts, you name it. So we are now, as part of the Melbourne food culture, there's also sort of that underground, not so underground, Filipino-Australian culture fusion. The number one, and this is for the audience, the restaurant of the year awarded by Time Out magazine is Sarai. He's a Filipino chef. We featured him 2 months ago with the Philippine Times, and that sort of that strong thread that I could see: entrepreneurs, corporates, volunteers, everyone. That is you have to have that grit and determination to reach for your dreams. And so that's what's exciting for me, as well as a writer, to feature those stories, to share those stories, and in the hope that utilizing this commonalities to make our culture a bit more prevalent, and also link up with other cultures and say, you know what, let's make this happen. Let's collaborate. Let's communicate. Let's be part of this huge melting pot that is Melbourne, Victoria. And it's a very great thing to see, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that very reassuring message, Rain. And so I want to continue with a specific endeavor. And I give this question to May, and probably can talk more about Tagalog learning, specifically how your passion for teaching Filipino or Tagalog to Filipino Australians, how did it begin? And probably to talk about what hurdles, briefly, your hurdles that you had to face in setting up the center.
Well, I guess as academics, we're always taught to think of what's the gap, what's missing, what things can I do for the community, how can I make an impact. And so, as I've mentioned, I was a student of La Trobe University. I was doing my master's degree in TESOL, and I have an assessment in social linguistic landscape. And during that time, I studied the social linguistic landscape of the Filipino in the community where I belong, which is Brimbank. And so based on my research, we are number 7 most populous emerging migrant community in the city. And I was shocked to find out that why isn't there a lot of Filipino in our social linguistic landscape. And so I dig deeper, and I realized I went to all the libraries. I only found, 35 books, maximum of 200 different kinds of resources in Filipino, while other cultures have 2,000s, 3,000s. And so what's the problem? What went wrong? And I realize people are saying, oh, you guys speak English very well. You don't need to have materials on your own language. And I was like, but that doesn't mean we have to forget our language. That is our identity. That is who we are. There is something wrong here. And so I also try to understand, do we have any lote opportunities for the kids, and to Lote, for those who are not in linguistic, is language other than English. That is given to some elementary and high school in our Victorian school system. And so I found out, yes, there are Lote, but only for specific locations where there's a big number of Filipino students. So there's something missing here, you know? And so I did community consultation. I said, why are you not allowing your kids to learn Filipino? And I realized that a lot of our Filipino um, family don't know how important it is to actually be bilingual, or they don't have the time to do it. We are so busy, mom and dad working together. We need to pay all the bills, mortgages, everything. It's too expensive to look for a tutor. It's so difficult to look for a Filipino teacher. So there's a lot, complexities, problems, issues. And then I said, okay, so what if I give you free classes? Will you enroll your kids? Of course, Filipino moms being it libre, definitely we will. So I said, okay, what if I want to start teaching Filipino. And so Francis talk about the hurdle. There's a lot. Okay. First of all, I need to talk to myself in front of the mirror and say, hey, May, this is a commitment. You need to really decide if you're committed to do this, because it's not something you can just abandon. So first of all, I made sure that, okay, I'm committed to do this, but then I can't do it alone. I need to look for people who's willing to volunteer, help me do this. I don't have a venue. I don't have funding. You know what I mean? So all these things, but as Raine said earlier, you'll find ways. Okay. So I wrote the council, I wrote the library. Look, this is my project. I need your help. Will you be able to give us some space in the library? And then slowly I did my pilot program. And the pilot program, I had 10 students. After that pilot program, Greenbank Library gave me the opportunity to use the library for my pilot project. And so after the pilot program, I said to the parents, look, this is it. Did you want us to continue or, not? But I need your help to pay for a community hub because I don't have funding. So they're more than happy to give, cold coin donation and things like that. And then eventually we talk to small businesses, to our partners. This is what we want to do. Can you help us? And then so eventually we're able to get donations, that sustain our projects. And then eventually I said, okay, I want to do adult classes. And if you want to enroll, you need to pay this little amount of money so we can sustain the project for the kids. And that's why we become sustainable. So to make that long story short, that's how we did it. 2 years on, we have already taught more than 200 kids and 63 adult learners. So that's basically the story of Tagalog learning.
Yeah. Thank you for that story. That's very inspiring. If I may, I would also want to have information about the organizations that's part of this session. One is Good Vibes Philippines. Probably Melvin can say something about your program, and then later also I'm very pleased to know about Philippine sorry, that's Philippine tribute
Philippine Times.
Philippine
Philippine
Times.
Times, yeah.
Yeah. So probably sorry, probably Raine can also say a bit about that.
Well, Good Vibes Filipinas is founded by myself, Mayred Zafra, and Bibo Santos. Bibo is also a nurse, a teacher as well. They have a family business called Learners Hub, which is a finalist for best business in Melton this year. So it started when I was in 97.4 radio stereo in Braybrook. No, it's in Brooklyn, and it happens that the station is going to be closing. So upon knowing that, and I was relocating after a year here in Melton. We inquired in Melton 97.9 FM, which is 5 minutes from here at home. And then we just inquired. Bibo and myself went there to inquire for a slot. And we didn't know that we're going to sign in the contract for the Filipino college community program. We're so excited. We didn't even know what kind of program that we were into, but being myself and Bibo with the same commitment and devotion, positive people really attracts. What I mean. It's so amusing how the universe was made into place, that people the same commitment and the same mindset work together. And then when Bibo and myself was about to sign, I think I asked Bibo, we need another one. He said, I thought that as well, Kuya. I think Mary Zafra is going to join us as well. We needed to ask her because May was one of our guests before. She was just founded the Tagalog Learning Melbourne in that time, and she was our guest on the previous station. And then when we called May, she just confirmed, yes, join ako dyan. We're into that. And suddenly after 2 weeks of I think 3 weeks of programming in the radio, I think we've got so many views already and so many listeners, Filipino listeners, not just in the Melton but also in the whole Victoria, but not in Victoria, but also since we have the social media, putting it in Facebook, in YouTube, and in Instagram, and Twitter as well. So we had an instant 1,000 viewers for 2 months. So and that was on the time that pandemic was just starting. So after 2 months of programming, we were held by the pandemic. So we continued recording. So the company, the radio company, 97.9 FM, agreed for us to pre-record and then put it through the link so that the technician will play it on our time slot. So we have researched so many technologies, just like this OBS and Zoom, and then we have so many we just don't want to disclose because that was paid by our sponsors. And luckily, so many local businesses supported us. We have 7 sponsors on our first year, and our second year during the pandemic, we have 13 or 14 sponsors already, and that sustained our subscriptions and Zoom and some other technologies as well. And we are all working. We are family people. May has her own job. Bibo has her own job. Myself has my own have my own job as well. And this we're just doing this for a hobby, for the community. And it started from doing info sessions about COVID, awareness on family violence. We even invited police officer to come into our info session, so that the Filipinos, because the Filipinos, especially us, we're afraid of the police. When we saw there's a police car there, okay, we need to disengage. But we didn't know that the police officers are so approachable and so accommodating to the community as well. That's why we invited them. What are the what why do we need? What are the chances that we get into trouble if we have we've been found positive with COVID. You know what I mean? Because it was a scare. The 2 months, 2 years of COVID is it changed the whole world. You know what I mean? Before when we just need to yawn or to do some achoo, people will say bless you. But on that stage, everyone you know will 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 kick you out of the room if you because of COVID. So it changes the world, changes our environment as well, and it changes how the Filipino community approach the social media. Until we have collaborated with so many Filipino organizations, with Gawad Kalinga, with Kafovi, with Puso, with 5B Humanitarian, with Dumayan. We had too many collaborating associations that we even send ourselves into trouble by you know giving support and even driving to to the patients,
Mm.
some foods and medicines. And because of that as well, because of the effort of Gawad Kalinga and the support of the Victorian government, um, the Gawad Kalinga was awarded with so many grants that supported the international students and the migrant community as well, even the visitors. So at that time, for the span of 2.5 years, the Gawad Kalinga and the Good Vibes Filipinas helped all of those patients um with gift cards,
Mm.
Kohl's cards, so that they can just order online, and even by the support of Merchants Manila, Merchant Manila even
Yes.
delivered all of the Filipino foods and Asian foods to our patients. So
Mm.
because of that, we were I think that's the reason why we got the award from from the Victorian Multicultural Commission last year, because of that. And also before that, Mayora, we had our before the COVID before the COVID came, I think we had this um bushfire. We
Yes.
had this
Right.
bushfire appeal.
Yeah.
We went with Gawad Kaling and other associations. We went to the bushfire victims, Filipino community as well. So we went there together with our newly
Really arrived.
arrived Deputy Consul General Anthony Mandap.
Yes.
So
Mm.
we went there to really get involved and share all of the blessings that we have to the unfortunate victims there. So I
Yeah.
think that started Good Vibes Filipinas.
Yeah.
Even though it's on more um, tragic
Mm.
times, Good Vibes Filipinas, Gawad Galing and Tagalog Learning Melbourne as well
Yeah.
were there to support the Filipino, and not just a Filipino community, but the multicultural community as well.
Yes,
So
I would like also to add, Melvin, during the COVID times, Tagalog Learning, Gawad Kalinga, and Good Vibes Filipinas, we were working tirelessly to translate those important messages from the Victorian government into Filipino so that our Filipino community, especially the elderly, can have a clearer understanding of, all these patalastas, that the government is distributing to us. We also, in partnership with through um, the help of Victorian government and in partnership with My Care Filipinos, us as volunteers, we also work as bicultural worker in different hospitals, different vaccination hub to translate and explain to our elderly, especially our elderly. Um, if they have questions, we translate their questions to the doctors and nurses and medical professionals so that they can have, this campante feeling. They feel secure that all their questions are being heard, all their questions are being addressed. So we were so busy. We were so busy during the pandemic. There were times when a lot of our international students lost their housing. They weren't able to afford it. Good Vibes Filipinas were calling in our titos and titas in Melbourne. Titos, titas, do you have spare room? You'll be able to, can you accommodate some of our international students? We were so busy. We also got training from My Care for peer-to-peer mental health.
And we're still doing that until
And
today,
yes, we're still doing
Oh,
that.
wow.
So through Good
till
Vibes,
this time.
through Good Vibes Filipinas, everyone can call us. Look, I will be there to talk to you as a peer-to-peer counselor. We've got training. We put them to other volunteers. There are some people victims of family violence. We try to help them. We give them support. We translate their statements for the police, and those kinds of things in partnership with Consulado of Melbourne. And of course, we give them proper recommendations or proper help on where to ask for help, where to get support. Because the first thing is actually there's a lot of situations wherein our Filipino kababayans would have these different kinds of questions, and they're so scared to reach out to available services because of the language barrier. So
Right.
we do a lot of that. We do help a lot. So, and if there are people still suffering or needing help, we are here for you. We always say that. We always publish the phone numbers, our phone numbers, so you can reach out to us and then we can direct you to the proper services that you need. Yeah.
And to add on, until now, we still have the peer-to-peer counseling with together with Gawad Kalinga. I still have 3 patients at the moment with mental health issues and domestic violence. I think I have 2 Filipinas international students at the moment. They're suffering. They are single moms that have been abused by their partners at the moment, and they need counseling, and um, they need a really big support of the Filipino community and the Consulado to go out because they're afraid. I think the partners are threatening them to kick out of the country or to deport. But the babies are going to be on the father sides. But until now, we have cases like that, and we're proud to do it. It's just our hobby. It's not our daily job, but we're happy to do this as a hobby, as one of our hobbies actually. So if I think this is one of the most effective way of serving the Filipino-Australian the multicultural community. We're not even giving them money, millions, but we assure them that we are here to listen to them, to devote our time to help them until they surpass this kinds of challenges in their lives. So that's how Good Vibes Filipinas are operating at the moment.
Yes. Thank you. I honestly, all the work that you've done, Melvin and May, and the whole team at Good Vibe Filipinas and Gawad Kalinga, is so incredible in terms of providing Filipino migrants here in Australia as a safe space to approach, and not only just to provide support, but also help relay that information and translate that information, especially during the COVID times. And I really, I was also very encouraged to hear that you guys provided support during the 2019-2020 bushfires. So you're not only supporting the Filipino community, but encouraging those who can help from the Filipino community to also help the Australian community as well. So that's
Also,
really a
Ray,
big step.
I would like to give credit as well to the Pinoys in Melbourne.
Yes.
Local Pinoys in Melbourne, the PIM West, which is the main, I think, Special Edward Diaz is watching as well, one of the admins of Pinoys in Melbourne. Without them, we cannot relay our communications. We cannot even relay our info sessions because of social media and because of COVID as well. So we really appreciate the trust of the Pinoys in Melbourne Facebook page. So kudos to the Pinoys in Melbourne admins.
Yes, thank you for shouting out Pinoys in Melbourne, because that was also my first exposure to the Filipino-Australian community here in Australia, is Pinoys in Melbourne Facebook group. And let's not forget also the amazing work that the Philippine Times have been doing in terms of, providing a voice. In fact, Premier Daniel Andrews stated that the Philippine Times is a trusted voice of the Filipino community in Melbourne. And Raine actually had an opportunity to interview and talk with the premier. And before I continue on, I just wanted to say that as we continue on, we are now moving on to the live audience Q&A session. So for those of you who are watching and want to join in the conversation, please feel free to use the Q&A function on the Zoom and direct your questions to one of our panelists, and we are more than happy to answer them. And so, yeah, I just wanted to state that. But yes, overall, there's been so much effort, and as Raine mentioned earlier, the resilience of the Filipino-Australian community going beyond, multiple roles of not, your jobs, being a mom or husband to your family, and then, having that passion and motivation to contribute and help the community is something that I really found, not just through the interactions, but also through the stories that I've read on the Philippine Times. So Raine, if you want to add on to that as well, feel free to do so.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think that spirit of collaboration and bayanihan is definitely present in Victoria with the different and various communities. So Philippine Times has actually been around since 1990. So it is the longest serving Australian newspaper. So it's been around for 32 years now, 32 years next month. But what we actually also do is obviously collaborate, similar to what Melvin had done in inviting the Philippine consulate, the deputy consul actually has a column in the Philippine Times as well. And we have a presence across all the states. So what we do cover, it is a community paper. So we do cover all the various community events. And there's been a big really thrust to ensure that stories are heard for everyone, and the support is there. There are ways and means wherein all the government sort of updates we also presented, and just making sure that it's really about all working together to have that solid voice. So yes, it was an honor to interview the premier, and obviously he thanked everyone in the various Filipino organizations who just continue to do the good thing. All right, so that's really much all I can add to that, that the work still continues. The work is being done by volunteers, and it's really about that passion to serve and the passion to make a difference that's common in all the panelists and all the community organizations that you see here in Melbourne. Continue on. It's not about the politics, however, it's about what can we do together to ensure that we continue to be a success and we continue to be that positive light in people's lives. So I think that's it.
Indeed. And, I think that's fairly evident in all the stories that I've read on the Philippine Times, and just, focusing on that, as you mentioned before, like that hope, despite, challenging times, each one, continues to look forward and continues to persevere, and, focus on supporting the community and building the community as well. And I want to, and during the pandemic period, I was very thankful for the Philippine Students Council in Victoria, as they were giving care packages, and I was one of those students to receive those support packages. So I'm very thankful, and I felt the support of the community then. And Francis, before you go, would you like to share your final thoughts on kind of what you've taken in learning about the Filipino-Australian community?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Ray. For those who don't know, I've been to Melbourne only for a month, and now I'm staying in La Trobe University. One thing that was pleasantly surprising for me about Melbourne is how multicultural it is. And so it really makes me think about how the Filipino community fits into this kind of landscape, And I'm very happy to meet persons like, well, of course, students here in the Trobe, and now the movers, of the Filipino community here in Melbourne. So thank you for this.
Thank you so much, Francis. And thank you, for everyone, Melvin, Raine, and May, for all the work that you continue to do for the community. And looking like we only have a few minutes left, is there, what's your kind of, say, founding sentence that you would share to our audience to kind of describe and encourage people to join or be involved in the Filipino community?
I probably would like to start that. There's a lot more work to be done, as Rain have said earlier. And right now, Melvin and I, Good Vibes Filipinas and Tagalog Learning Incorporated, are cooking something especially for the youth. Because we want the youth to be more involved. We want to bridge that gap, intergenerational gap among our youth and our elders, because that is very, very important, as well as the continuation not only of language, but also culture and tradition. And we want to have more collaboration with the youth. So I am inviting all of you to join us. We are so happy to hear what you guys are thinking, how we could help the youth, not only the Filipino-Australian youth, but, the multicultural youth in Victoria, to work together into a common goal and, having more engagement with our young leaders, have more young leaders. That's really one of the projects that I am looking at in the next couple of years.
Thank you so much, May. And we only have 1 minute left, so quick parting messages from Melvin and Raine.
Melvin, are you going first or? Okay, I'll go first. I think for us, there's always a spirit of making a difference that's common. That's a common thread. So if you feel the urge or the need to help out, just do so. I've always believed in paying it forward, whatever you have in life. It's always less for self, more for others. And that's the wonderful thing about being a Filipino-Australian in Victoria. There's a lot of ways that you can help. So just reach out, as May and Melvin said. Philippine Times is always also looking for volunteers. So we are a community of volunteers, really.
Yes, my last thoughts go. It's just for all the migrants there, the youth. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. So always be part of the solution. That's one thing. And enjoy life. Get away from toxicity. Number one is to preserve yourself as well. And if you want to serve the community, involve your families. It's good to involve your kids, your loved ones, your missus, your husband, your spouses to the community. In such, if you involve them, that means you are also involving some families into the group. That's why the gap is so high, is so long within intergenerational, because in the first point, those elders did not involve their families in it.
Mm.
Now, as friends with Philippine Times as well. Good Vibes Filipinas are friends with Philippine Times. We have the Jason Cordy as the editor in chief, a very good friend of Good Vibes Filipinas. So together, okay, don't be scared. Failure is just there,
Mm.
but persevere always. You need to stand up quicker than you fall.
Mm.
So I think that's the last word for me, Ray Island and May, Rain. Thank you very much, Diana, for inviting us here.
Thank you, Melvin. And I think that that is one of the core aspects that I've come to understand about the Filipino Australian community here in Melbourne is that perseverance to continue on and despite any situation and work together and bring each other up. And so before we go, where can our audience find each one of you?
Okay, so we have a Facebook page. So just look for Tagalog Learning Inc. So please join our group. We post there the links for our Saturday classes. For kids, we have classes for young kids and teens, and they are free. So please join us if you want to learn Filipino po. Yeah, looking forward to see you in class.
So for us, as Melvin mentioned, so my editor-in-chief is Jason Cordy and our publisher is Alice Nicolas, together with George Gregorio, who's one of the founding members of Philippine Times. So you can always find us in Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook, we're the Philippine Times Australia. So just like or follow. We are always pretty much really quite present in social media, and we have a monthly paper that's out already, so catch that in your local Filipino store across the country. So yeah, that's it.
Yes, you can find us on our Facebook, YouTube, our Instagram, and also in TikTok, even in Twitter and Twitch as well. So just look for Good Vibes Filipinas. And also you can visit our website, www.goodvibesfilipinas.com. And you can always look for us on Pinoys in Melbourne. If you have some questions, we'll pop out and support you at once. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, May, Melvin, and Raine, for coming in this evening and speaking with us in this panel. And especially, I give my thanks to you, the audience, who heard our conversation and took part in our conversation as well. I also wanted to let you know that the webinar has been recorded. And if you've registered for this event, you will receive by email the appropriate links when they're ready. And also on our end, please follow us on Twitter at @PathLatrobe for the Philippines-Australia Forum and Trobe Asia, or join our mailing list to find more details about our online events and activities. And before we go, I'd also like to share that we have our next Philippines in Focus session taking place on Thursday, 27th of October at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So if you would like to join us then, I believe our links will be sent out for that Zoom session, and it is a free event, and you will get to hear about the Indian diaspora in the Philippines presented by Gilbert Jacob Q. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, and wishing you all a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Raine. Bye,
Bye.
Melvin. Bye, May. Bye, everyone.